Good evening, everyone. We are back. It's hard to believe it's 2021. I know 2020 was, how do I put this politely? It was a year. It was one we will always remember. But here we are in 2021, our first episode of the year. And, we're really looking forward to getting the ball rolling. So, in the thoughts of getting the ball rolling, let's bring in my co-host coming to us tonight from down in Nova Scotia, Mr. Matt Zito.
Hey, Donnie, how you doing?
Good, Matt. How are you doing? How are you doing tonight? I'm a little out of practice here. I'm stumbling all over myself.
It's all right. I'll probably follow suit pretty soon here too. No, I'm doing good, man. Things are good.
That's good. Good. It's good. Been a while since we've seen you, but I hope that you and the family survived the holidays and all is well.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was quiet. Obviously, you can't really travel anywhere or do very much, but it was nice just to kind of hang out. We had it was a nice, quiet, happy, warm holidays.
Yeah, well, I think, and that's one thing. If COVID has taught us nothing else, the time we're having with our family and our loved ones is a little more precious because we know sometimes we're getting denied some of that access. So. Yeah. You're enjoying the time you get with the people that are closest to you. So we'll take that as a positive, and we'll move on to 2021. And mention of one thing, because I've received a number of questions about it over the last little bit. Yes, the release of the show was delayed. We were originally supposed to go to air on December 28th. We hit, a couple delays. We're just working on the details now, trying to secure a new launch date for the show. As soon as we know, you guys will know. The episodes are I'm not going to say they're all edited, but we have episodes edited, ready to go. We just need to nail down that launch date and get beyond the couple little speed bumps that slowed us down. So the episodes are coming. We appreciate everybody bearing with us. It's our first year. These things happen. So we're just going to, keep pushing forward and bring you guys the best products we can bring you. So, Matt, I don't know about you, or I can't speak for our two guests that we're about to bring on, but, COVID aside, from a fishing perspective, 2020 was eventful.
Yeah, I agree 100%. For us in Nova Scotia, got off to a rocky start. We had a delay. I don't think you guys had a delay in New Brunswick. We were delayed a month.
We were only delayed about a week. So
yeah, so it was tough. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of upset people. I won't get into all that, but it was tough, especially when you're waiting all year to wet a line, and then you're told you got to wait an extra month, and the weather's getting nice and just looking out the window at Kinsack, you start to see fish starting to break, around mid-April, and you're just itching to get out there. But once the season opened up, there was a lot of highlights this season. Took a lot out of this season, had some great experiences, met some great people, fished with some great people. So overall, really good season.
Yeah, exactly. And that's we did have a little bit of a delay, not as long as you guys did, but our season starts later. So I think. Right. Realistically, I think we all got on the water pretty close to the same time. Mm-hmm. But before we get into talking too much about that, let's bring in our guests, and we're just going to do basically a 4-person roundtable discussion tonight. We're going to talk to you about our seasons, about our plans for 2021, what worked, what didn't, the lures that we used, the stuff that we learned. We're just going to have a great, fun season episode, just talking fishing, just some guys talking fishing. So you folks watching at home, if you've got any questions about anything any of us talk about tonight, make sure you throw a question into the comments. Our producer will make sure that we get the comments popped up on screens where we can see them, and we're just going to take it from there. So let's bring on our guests. We have joining us also from Nova Scotia, a little closer to New Brunswick in the Truro area, Mr. Ryan Anderson, the goldfish master.
Everybody always has to bring up the goldfish stuff, but I don't mind. It's all right.
How many of us have caught them?
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to, come on down in the spring.
No. I didn't say how many of us could. I said how many of us have.
To be honest, that is a stock trout pond. and goldfish are a pretty common bycatch. And I know of a couple other ponds in Nova Scotia that it is actually fairly normal to catch goldfish. So
Well,
maybe
that's
not
good.
to go target them specifically like I do, but you can catch them.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know how. We'll talk about the hooks a little later, but I don't even know how you tie something that small. So that we'll get into that in a few minutes.
I got a trick.
Yeah, I bet you do. Before we get on to that, joining us tonight from Miramichi, up a little further north where there might be some ice. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. Mr. Rob Langer.
Hey guys,
Hey,
how's it
Rob.
going?
How you doing, Rob?
Good, I'm doing good.
So, Rob, since you weren't here for that have you ever caught a goldfish?
No, but I actually did try this fall. There's a little gully. I took a little trip to Newfoundland, and there's a little gully close to my hometown where apparently some goldfish ended up in there from someone's tank. And people were telling me stories about these goldfish hitting the top water and everything like that. It was fall time. I couldn't get one to bite. I don't know if they're really there, but I did give it the college try.
I'm sorry, but Jason Wilcox already chiming in. He wants to catch a goldfish, and I'm sorry, but Rob just talked about goldfish on top water. That visual has kind of got me chuckling a little bit.
It's hearsay. It's hearsay. That's the story I'm getting, anyways. But
I will say I do know of a spot here in New Brunswick, actually not that far from my home here in Sussex, that is known to have goldfish in it, and it's a fairly pristine spot. The locals use it as a hot weather swimming hole, and there's been a couple guys go down and target the goldfish with a certain amount of success, but the locals didn't take too kindly to it because that's basically their big pet outdoor aquariums. So, I think in the best interest of the community relations, we won't tell anyone where that is, and we'll just leave that alone. So, let's kick things off, guys. We'll turn to you as our guests first. Rob, we'll start with you.
Sure.
2020. What did 2020 present to you with, fishing opportunities? We're just going to kind of bounce things around and talk about it. So we'll just kind of go around the table with one or two items and go from there. So what was your highlight of 2020?
My highlight of 2020 was probably getting involved in the smallmouth fishery over on the west side of the province. I had never, well, I guess I had caught a smallmouth before when I was a kid, but I couldn't really remember it. So it was basically my first time smallmouth fishing, and I fell in love, and but then it all kind of got sidetracked by the Atlantic Anglers Challenge, which I kind of dove way too deep into, and it basically it took away every fishing opportunity that I could have had, and I just fished striped bass basically for the whole season.
But that's a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not really what I wanted to do, but I did learn a lot when it came to stripers. And I mean, I thought I knew quite a bit, but I learned a lot over this last 2020 season.
Okay, so just to expand on that a little bit, Rob, for folks who aren't aware, the Atlantic Anglers Challenge was, and how do I put this? An online tournament put together by the folks at Anglers Atlas. Basically, when COVID first hit, nobody knew if any competitive fishing events were going to be allowed. So they saw this as a way to provide an online competitive platform to maritime or Atlantic Canadian anglers. They did it as a fundraiser for, I believe it was the St. John Regional Hospital Foundation. So they were supporting a good cause. And they also, through all the data collected from the anglers who contributed to the Atlantic Anglers Challenge, they were collecting science. So you were, as an angler, were basically contributing to the scientific research being done on the East Coast. As far as catch data, how big the fish are, where they were being caught. There's a familiar face right there on the Atlantic Angler Challenge Facebook page. So all in all, it was a great, and I believe it's something they plan on making an annual event. So, keep an eye out for it going into next year. They had some great sponsors, some great prizes. and just a great overall thing. And like Rob said, it became for him a little bit addictive. Would that be fair?
It was very addictive. Yeah, it was just about numbers. And I'm sure Ryan can attest to this. He was kind of approached it from a different angle, but it was just about numbers, and it was fun, and it was a challenge for sure. And they named it right with the Atlantic Anglers Challenge because it was tough.
Yeah, well, no, and that's great. And I mean, anything to get people fishing, whether it be a live in-person tournament or an online platform that, you didn't have to have a boat. You could be fishing from shore, or, it was really, really a great idea by the folks at Anglers Atlas. And, I really hope to see it continue on for years to come, because, it's just another great way. There's Nick Rose saying the Atlantic Angler Challenge was awesome. And the consensus pretty much is just that. So, Ryan, I'm going to bounce that over to you, since Rob so nicely segued saying you took at it from a different angle. Now, I don't know if that's your highlight or one of your highlights, but let's see what your highlight for 2020 was.
The Atlantic Anglers Challenge definitely led towards my highlight this year. I mean, I did a lot of cool stuff this year that I hadn't done before. I traveled down to Maine for a fishing trip in the winter for an ice fishing derby. I spent a few days in New Brunswick doing some fishing up there, but for the most part, I signed up for the Atlantic Anglers Challenge, and I approached it for the multiple species side of it, which is something that I've done in the past. I've always kind of looked towards catching different fish. But with the Atlantic Anglers Challenge, I got motivated to figure out some new stuff that maybe I wouldn't target before. So I got into the micro fishing a lot. I hiked creeks and rivers, and I went out and caught every little tiny minnow type species of fish. That's why I got into the goldfish, honestly. I caught every different species I could possibly think of, and I traveled every, like I said, little creek out on the ocean, wherever I could come up with a spot to catch another species, I went for it. And that led to my highlight this year. I got into the habit of taking the dog for a walk in new areas that might have creeks and rivers and whatnot flowing through it, and stumbled across a creek that I fished in probably August. And this creek is absolutely chock full of fish. I was catching 8 to 10 inch trout. I caught probably 5 or 6 different species. A lot of the minnow stuff, creek chubs, all that little stuff. I mean, for me, this is exactly what I enjoy. But I mean, to find a spot in the middle of August where you can go consistently catch trout. I mean, we're in a province here where everybody wants to let anybody know. It's very easily accessible. But that's my spot. That's a spot I can go to any time of the year for an hour or two and just enjoy myself. So it was a highlight for me to find a place like that.
And, anytime you can find a place like that, especially if you can find one close to home, that is something that we all like to have, our little secret fishing spot. And truth of the matter is, most of our secret fishing spots really aren't that secret. But if you get one that at least gives you that feeling, hold on to it and enjoy it for as long as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Matt, I think we're going to bounce up to you next. I know we get the opportunity to fish together a couple times this year, and I'm sure that fishing with me was probably not really a highlight. But what was your highlight for the? I mean, we're going to talk about multiple highlights, but what do you say is one of your highlights for the 2020 season?
Well, I wouldn't say that, Donnie. I beg to differ. I think that was probably one of my highlights, to be completely honest with you. Just being able to film the 2 episodes of Fish East that we did, and got to fish in Yarmouth. I had never fished in Yarmouth before, and always heard all these stories of these monster pickerel and big bass, and so I was really excited to get down there. So that was kind of a highlight. And then of course, Waikagama, that I've fished many times before, but this particular trip that we did was pretty epic. So just got to fish with you guys, and that's definitely one of the highlights. And then I think just the run of fish in the Stewiacke this year. And I mean, I've done it for a couple of years now, but I really kind of keyed into them this year. I figured a few things out. So I think that was like something I'm proud of and a highlight for me, because now, like, you know, now that I've kind of got them figured out, like it's just going to keep growing for me. I feel like every year, in fishing in general, you know, I learn a little bit, and I'm really proud of some of the accomplishments I've had on the Stewiacke this year. Even like just taking people out. There was not one day where we went out where I didn't have any, where anyone didn't hook a fish. There was 2 times where we didn't land fish, plenty of fish hooked that day, just couldn't get it in the boat. But it was the first year where I've gone and hooked a fish every time I've gone to the river. And there's always been fish there. It was just I couldn't figure them out, but I think I kind of keyed into them this year. And so that was kind of a highlight for me. Like I kind of had that moment on the river. I was like, oh my God, like I figured it out. Like this is, you know, like this is probably one of the greatest, I don't want to say techniques, but one of the greatest things I've learned in my fishing career. Cause it you know, it's something that you put the time in and you're just messing around. And I was just messing around one day and kind of keyed in on something. I was like, holy smokes, like this is it. This is what it took. All these times, all these things I've tried, and it was just one silly little thing that I'll talk about later. So I think that was probably, you know, if I had to pick 2 highlights, that was it. There was a lot of great moments this year, but if I had to kind of key in on 2, I would say it was those 2 things for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime we can learn something, anytime we, you know, fishing is evolved. It evolves, and each of us as individual anglers, we evolve. So anytime we can learn something, and figure there's a question.
No, that's going to start a debate.
Start an argument. That may not just start a debate. That could start an argument. Mike Rouse doesn't live that far from me. How you doing tonight, Mike? Where's the best striper run in the Maritimes? I guess that would depend on your definition of the best. Are you talking numbers? Are you talking size?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, because I think each of those could have a different answer. Size-wise, the Bay of Fundy. Now you can debate which side of the Bay of Fundy sees the bigger fish, but let's be honest. The Bay of Fundy fish are probably going to win the size argument.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure.
Numbers, I can't speak for Nova Scotia. I would say Miramichi, overall quality of fish.
Yeah.
You know, Miramichi is probably going to win the debate in New Brunswick as far as numbers go.
What are the numbers in Miramichi?
Last year, the school was down by, I believe, and Jeff Wilson, if you're watching, I apologize if I get this wrong. But I believe the numbers were down by about 2/3, down to about 350,000 fish in the school, down from roughly 900,000 the year before, and nobody seems to be able to put a finger on the science as to why. You know, Rob, maybe you know a little more being from that region, but I think those were the numbers.
No, that's basically it. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got their opinions on why. My personal opinion is due to the climate, and I think the fish are migrating and moving around. And I don't think that, you know, there was a big drop in the population because those fish were caught, you know, commercially or whatever. I think it's just due to climate, and I think those fish are moving around and finding new places to go.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we've established size and we've established New Brunswick for quantity. Matt, Ryan, you guys are our Nova Scotia experts.
Yep. I can give my opinion because I've fished the Bathurst and Miramichi runs. I fished the Bay of Fundy and I fished the Stewiacke River. For me personally, I would go to the Miramichi or Bathurst over all of the other spots every day of the week because you might not have as much of a chance at the 40 pluses up there, but the way that you can fish, you know, the amount of fish that are there, there are the sizes there. There are big 30 plus fish all over the place up there, especially during the spawning run at the Miramichi, right? But I personally don't like the cut bait fishing in the Bay of Fundy. I'm not a huge fan of the Stewiacke River because it is, Matt will agree, it's a muddy mess. That is my way of saying it without swearing.
You can, if you need to say what you were thinking, you can say it.
So for me personally, Bathurst, I love Bathurst. I did a couple of kayak fishing derbies up there, and absolutely, I mean, when you can catch consistent 20-inch stripers and occasionally get 30 plus, from a kayak 30 feet off the shore, who wouldn't enjoy that, right? And you just don't have to deal with the crap that you have to deal with in the Stewiacke or the Bay of Fundy.
Yeah. I'll after fishing it in a boat, I won't fish it on shore anymore. I know that even in a boat, it's still muddy because you track mud into the boat getting in, and even the water itself is muddy. Like, it's so fine, it gets all through your gear, all through your reels, your fly line. Like, you'll see your fly rods after a while. Like, the guides will actually start to get, it's like sandpaper. Your fly line turns into sandpaper, and those guys will burn right through the guides after a couple of years. But there's a lot of fish in it. There's a ton of fish in it. I think the last I heard, gentleman by the name of Owen Marr has a lot of knowledge. He's really big into all the studies and things that go on there. I think it was estimated about 500,000 come up the river every year, based off some of the studies they did. He explained it to me. It has something to do with they scoop up a certain amount of eggs in an area, and then there's basically a math formula that goes with it. And just from the eggs alone, they figure there's about 500,000. The thing with that study is that they're measuring that based off eggs and females, so it doesn't really account too much for the males. So there's probably more than 500,000 is the way he explained it to me. And don't forget, we got the population that live in Grand Lake and the Bay of Fundy that get together. So there's quite a big number in there. But I agree with Ryan. I don't like the cut bait fishing in the Bay of Fundy. I haven't done it where I just actually go up to the bay in probably 3 or 4 years. I'll do a little bit in the Shubenacadie when they first start coming up at the beginning of the year. I did a little bit this year, but I would love to get up to the Miramichi just for comparison. After hearing all the stories, I definitely want to check it out for sure.
Could you imagine if we could drop a pill in the water and the Stewiacke was crystal clear? What a sight that would be. Could you imagine?
It would scare you. It would be scary.
When you take a boat up the Stewiacke River and you are bouncing off of stripers on your way up the river, you can only imagine if you could actually see what it was a foot underwater, right?
Yeah. I've had clients before, and you're in the boat and you're boom, 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 and like, Joe, geez, there must be a log floating. No, it's fish. And you tell them, no, it's fish. But they'll run right into your boat. If you leave your trolling motor down, they'll smack right into the prop. They'll even hit the sonar, like they'll smack it right up. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm telling you, like it's so thick. Well, it's such a small space, right? Like, I'm sure there's probably maybe close to the same amount of fish in the Miramichi, but you guys have such a bigger body of water that they can spread out in. So I don't know. I can't really speak to it. I've never fished it, but from what you guys talk about, you kind of got to chase the school around. You got to go find them.
You follow them.
In the Stewiacke, it's like, okay, they're here. So I just like they're there. It's so small. They're just compact. They're compact into like a 50-foot across and like 10 feet deep. It's just stacked. Like if you go, you just have to drive straight up the river and you're going to find them. They're there somewhere. And, it's unbelievable. But I would definitely like to fish some clear water for them. So I'm looking forward to the Miramichi. Get up there this year, hopefully, if COVID allows.
Hopefully that allows, because I know we want to get down and fish that muddy water, because that's a definite, those. I think we've got a picture there of Matt with a Stewiacke beast. Mike says he's heard legends of Stewiacke, but wanted to know what we thought. If that picture's still there of Matt with that Stewiacke monster, and I don't know.
There's one of them. That was close to 40 inches. And that's the thing. There's big fish in there. Like, they're big. It's just different. I mean, it's hard to say what's the best because it's so different and it's unique there. The Stewiacke's unique. You got those big tidal bores. The tide changes like 30 feet. It's unique. And there's big fish there. Is it, the best fishing conditions? No. I mean, you don't even get to see the fish until it's basically in the net. Like, the water's so muddy. But
Yeah, but when it's peel and drag, do you really need to see it?
no,
Exactly.
no,
Exactly.
no, you don't. No.
So,
I'm going to get you one on the fly this year, Donnie. That's my 2021 goal is get Donnie a big fish on the fly rod. That's my 2021 goal.
Baby steps, baby steps. I should pick up a fly rod or get one here so I can practice some casting in the backyard over the winter. Because I know we've got a picture there. I'll be honest. I'm going to kind of move on to starting some of my own highlights. And I'm not going to try and occupy all the time, but I probably could just sit here and ramble all night myself. After my 2020 season, Jason Wilcox take the leap. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jay. Just what I need to do right now. Get another expensive addiction. So, but no, I mean, I think I'd have to go back and double check the numbers, but I think for myself personally, I caught 15 different species this year, which for me is far and away more than I've ever caught before. And throughout that, a number of firsts, and it's hard to really say out of all those firsts which one would be my biggest highlight. But I think I'll start since Matt mentioned getting me a big fish on a fly rod. This year, I got my first ever fish on a fly rod. And I know we've got a picture of it there. We were down in Waikagama, nice little rainbow, and I will total transparency, I was not casting. We were, utilizing other techniques, including some fly trolling. But no, that was my first fish on a fly rod. And on top of that, it was also my first ever rainbow trout. So that was two firsts in one. And it definitely was. And, everyone tells me I smile so much, the big smile on my face in that picture. Sarcastic.
Was that a steelhead, Donnie?
What's that?
Was that a steelhead?
That was one of the famous Waikagama stupid fish. Is that a fair assessment, Matt?
Yeah, fair assessment. I mean, technically, I guess they would be considered a steelhead because they're in salt water.
Salt water.
Yeah.
So technically, yes. The majority of the fish we caught, we did get a few smaller wild fish, but the majority that we caught were ones that escaped the aquaculture pens. Now, in saying that, they're basically starting to become wild. I mean, we talked a lot about it when we were in Waikagama, that a lot of those fish are now being in the system for, over a year now. They're basically starting to get accustomed to the conditions. They're starting to feed off natural feed, and they're starting to not be so. What did you say, Donnie? Stupid fish. They're not quite as stupid anymore. They're getting pretty smart now. They're not as easy to catch. But we kind of keyed into a few things that day that brought us some success.
And I don't necessarily think we'll talk a little bit about certain lures and stuff, but the Waikagama trip was kind of special, and there's something that I think we want to get back and try to duplicate before we really talk about it. Because let's be honest, I mean, we don't want to lead people astray. If we give you advice, we want it to be solid advice. At that Waikagama trip, we literally the day we were leaving, pulled the boat out of the water on the final day, and we really light bulbs were coming on that day on the drive home as to why certain things were happening. But it really was a special trip, and just a great weekend overall, and a great chance to get down to Cape Breton. And it's something I look forward to. I'm really hoping that 2021 holds a trip down there this year as well, because it's a special place. I mean, I've driven truck through Cape Breton so many times. I've never really had a chance to enjoy it most days because it's 2-lane highway. If I'm down there in a truck and I'm swearing at somebody. So it was really nice to get to actually enjoy Cape Breton and to stumble on the things we did fishing those big pen escapees was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, and what a backdrop too to fish them in.
Oh, we couldn't ask. I mean, that first day we were there, we couldn't have asked for anything better. So I'm really looking forward to people getting a chance to see that episode of Fish East when everything comes to air. I see Mike just popped another question up. What's your go-to technique for monster smallies? Let's start with Rob. Okay, yeah, that picture's going to get popped up right away, so I guess I'm going to start. I guess it depends on the time of year, Rob. Or Mike. I have very much been a tube fisherman over the last few years. I will admit that. I'm trying to move out of my comfort zone. And that fish right there, which we did not have a scale, but I am very confident in saying that is my personal best smallmouth, caught earlier this year. Definitely a highlight fish for me. That was caught later in the fall, throwing a square bill, a Berkeley. This was we were going to get into lures, so I guess I'm going to dip into that right now. What was the color? A brown mustard Berkeley square bull. That's the bait right there. And on a day when the water temperatures were cold enough, we thought we were going to be finding the fish deep, and we weren't. We moved back up onto some shallow banks and started cranking some rocks, and those rocks consistently produced tank smallmouth like you just saw in that picture. So, as far as a go-to technique, it really depends on the time of year and where you're fishing. And that's my opinion anyways. That's kind of so fall right now. The square bill is going to be something. Personally, until that trip, I never really thought square bill so much in the fall. That to me was more of something I'd throw in the spring. Yeah. Didn't throw it much in the fall because I was always looking at deeper water. But that just is something else I learned this year. Like, don't get caught in your habits and rule out certain parts of the water column because of a historical experience, because what happened last year is not always what's happening this year. So, if you guys have something you want to throw in there as far as a go-to bait for smallmouth, I know, Rob, I know you just kind of dipping your toes into it, this year, but I mean, you guys had some success.
Well, I actually, I brought a couple baits, and this is the one right here, and I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with it.
Yes.
Weightless Texas rig, Zoom fluke. My second time fishing smallmouth, and we got 13th place in the tournament, which we thought was pretty good, and that's what I used all day. Was that, and we got about 17 pounds that day. So, and that's what we used was just flukes. And I will say, being new to smallmouth, I tried, most of the techniques, and the wacky worm, man, I find that thing so frustrating. Just it's bite after bite after bite and no hookups. Like that's what happens for me anyway. I get the bites, but I just can't hook up on it.
What are you using for hooks with your wacky?
I'm using like a 1/8 ounce wacky hook.
You're using a weighted wacky?
A weighted wacky, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 99% of the time I'll throw wacky, I'll throw weightless. Or you can take that same Senko and flip it around and Texas rig it.
I did actually catch a nice smallmouth, a Texas rigged a Senko there one day. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I say, most of the time if I'm throwing wacky, I'll throw weightless, and a lot of times I'll do it on, a circle hook.
Okay, yeah.
For the simple fact, on a standard circle hook, 99% of the time they will hook themselves. You don't set the hook. Let them pick it up. Let them start to run with it. That circle hook bites into the side of their mouth, and away they go. Mm-hmm. So. Oh, Mike Rouse, he's back. He loves the wacky worm. Purple Senko. Purple. Mike, I might have some for you because I never have any luck with purple, and I'm pretty sure I got some out in the garage. So, Matt, how about you? Go-to bait, monster smallmouth. I know you have a love affair with one particular bait that I thought you were going to cry when you lost it down in Yarmouth.
I waited till I got home and bawled my eyes out, yeah. Well, I mean, this one is. This is probably the first year that it was productive, and it was, it's probably one of my favorite lures this year. just from that one. I've only really had experience with it on one day. But I think at least this particular lake I fish, I think it'll be really good. But you were mentioning how, conditions are different from day to day and it's hard to pick a lure. Well, I was fishing this lake and, it was hot. It was summer. I think it was like August. And, normally this particular lake, they're out of the shallows. They're kind of like on the deeper weed edges. It's a really weedy lake. There's not much rock at all. It's basically just a small little lake. It only gets about 25 feet at the deepest, and most of the fish kind of hanging around 10, 15 feet on a weed edge. We weren't having a great deal of luck, some small fish, and, I started to see some fish feeding on the surface, so it was by accident. A rogue cast went way farther than I wanted to, up into the shallows, and as soon as I hit the water, this great big bass came up and blew up on it, and I missed it, and I started thinking, like, they're not in shallow. There's no way they're in shallow. So we started going in shallow, and I started to see a lot of yellow perch. And then I started I could actually see these fish in about 3 feet of water, these big bass cruising in there, and they were after the perch. So I pulled out this lure that was in my box. I might have used it twice before that, a couple casts, took it off, and it's made by Savage Gear. It's called the 4D Perch. This one here. I actually got one out of the pack. Right here, and as soon as I started throwing this thing, I think I got four big bass and then like 2 smaller ones, and that's just what they want. And the swimming action, when you watch this thing, that's the most realistic lure I think I own, at least for perch anyway. It just swims so like perfectly when you're watching kind of perch. Like how they kind of, like sometimes they'll just skim under the surface, and this thing just mimics it perfectly. And I watched 3 of those fish just come out of nowhere, not like kind of looking at it and thinking about it, like just inhale, like right out of nowhere. The whole bait just disappeared, and I was super impressed with it. And then when, of course, we went to Yarmouth, I was like, oh, I got the bait for these pickerel in first cast. It was zoop, gone. Right, thing just ate the hole and took it, but. That's probably, there's one of I think that might have been the first or second one I got. That one that was about 19 inches, I think. And they were just right back in like you can see the lily pads in the back of that picture. And it was only 3 feet. There was some parts that might have even been 2 feet. And they were just cruising around in there looking for perch. And that was the lure that did it for me. And I know the same company makes some bigger ones, like they call them the line through perch. And I think I'm going to pick one up and maybe trawl it for pickerel this year and see how that works.
Do they make a smaller size?
Smaller? That is the smallest one. I think there's one bigger size. I think this one's about maybe 4.5, 5 inch, probably 4.5. And there's one bigger one. And then they make they do like this. This one's not a line through one. This one's, you just a regular kind of swim bait style. Then they got the line through ones for trolling, and they go up to like 12 inches long, I think.
Oh, wow.
Savage,
right? They go and I know I've seen a lot of videos of guys out west fishing pike on them. They just trawl them. So I think I'm going to pick up maybe one of the smaller ones, like maybe an 8-incher, and try to trawl it for some pickerel. See if I can get those big pickerel to commit. But that's one of my favorite lures I've used this year. And then of course I always got my usual go-tos, my swim baits, and flukes are always great. One lure that disappointed me this year was the Whopper Plopper. It was so great for me the season before, and this year I think I can count on one hand how many I got on the Whopper Plopper. And the year before, that was like a game changer for me. So that's my the Whopper Plopper got benched this year, we'll say.
Jason Wilcox commenting, go big. Yeah, that's easy to say from the musky guy.
Yeah.
We had a couple comments up on the screen there. Martin McNally, go give the Bass Pro candy corn stick a try just after ice out. Martin, I'm going to take you up on that. That's one I have not tried, so I'm going to have to take a trip to Moncton when we're allowed to. Mm-hmm. And look, track some of those down. And what else did we have up for comments there? Nick Rose, that's the perfect size. So I really do. I want to let you all know We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the questions. Before we move off this topic, we got one guy left up there in the top corner, and I want to pick his brain because, what was it, 32, 33 species this year, Ryan? I'm pretty sure smallmouth was on that list.
Smallmouth was on that list. It was actually 38 species this year.
30.
But smallmouth are still my favorite. Of all 38, I still like smallmouth best. As far as smallmouth fishing, I'm big on the drop shot. I use the drop shot. Like, there's never a time when I don't have a drop shot on. But when I have to go to a big fish bait, I've been using Berkeley Havoc Grass Pig. It's I think a 5 or a 6 inch swim bait in white on a weighted Texas rig worm hook. So on that weighted hook, the lake that I fish most often here near Truro is just weed choked, absolutely weed choked. So it helps if you can find a bait that'll run over top of, like, right down to 12 feet deep. It is solid weeds. So run that grass pig right up over the top of the weeds, let it drop down into the weeds a little bit, and pick it up through. I've caught more big bass on that grass pig than literally anything else. Add up all of the other lures I ever use, and they don't add up to anywhere near as many fish as I catch on that grass pig. It's just got just a great, super slow swim bait kind of motion to it. Love it.
Yeah, I've used the grass pigs before. We've used them for, we've used them for smallmouth, but we've also used them for stripers.
That's my striper bait too. I put it on a 1 ounce jig head and use the same thing for stripers. Yep.
See, now Mike's saying he was hoping someone would say drop shot. Now, Matt, we can't, certain things we just can't get into. We had some pretty mind-blowing experiences with drop shots this year, which you will all see later when the Fish East episodes come to air.
Yep.
But Ryan, since you're the one that brought up drop shot, and we'll move on from smallies after this, and start looking at some other highlights and plans for 2021. But what is your go-to drop shot setup, or just your drop shot bait?
Yeah. I have tried a ton of different drop shot baits because I feel like I've got to be able to do something a little more with it because I use the same thing so often. I use your basic 3-inch Berkeley Power Minnow. And I've been using that. The first time I ever used a drop shot, that's what I used, and it worked for me. Usually like the white or the shad color. So super basic. I have tried a bunch of yum baits, kill shots, warning shots, money makers, which are kind of like a Senko style thing made for drop shots. I've tried little swim baits, but nothing works as well as just that super basic 3-inch power minnow. Rigged usually on a size 1. I use there's a drop shot hook, and I can't remember. It's actually a specific drop shot hook that has a little swivel in it, and I can't remember exactly what it is. But I use those drop shot hooks in your basic, 1/8 ounce drop shot weights that just clip onto the tag end of your line. Super basic. 8-inch tag end on my line. On my that's it. I can use that all year long.
Nice. Before we let you go off the big part of the screen, Ryan, I think you may know the person asking this question fairly well. I do love the comment about the pink bag. I was going to bring that up, but I'm glad I don't have to. But this is a legitimate question, and this isn't just bass this applies to. This applies to any of the species we target. Regarding the baits, is it the scent, texture, shape they're attracted to? How can fish see through solid weeds?
To be honest, I don't think they see through solid weeds. If you're fishing in heavy weeds, for me personally, I'll be using something aggressive, either a rattle bait, something with a lot of movement, right? Jerk baits, stuff like that. With the swim bait, you get your movement. You get that big, heavy body swim bait with a big tail that gives a lot of kicks. So I think the fish are sensing it more than they're seeing it or smelling it. In open water or when you're fishing specific structure, like a tree or something like that, you can put your bait into a spot where the fish can see it. But as far as heavy weeds, I'm all about, aggressive fishing and trying to attract it with the movement as opposed to them seeing it or smelling it.
Yeah.
So more than sight, it's vibration, noise. For anyone who's wondering about the drop shot setup that Ryan's using.
There it is.
This is, that's basically the same. I don't know what brand you're using, Ryan. I've got that set up in Gamakatsu hooks.
Yep. Mine might be Gamakatsu, but it's same style. That's
same setup.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they're not easy to come by. But anytime I see them, I definitely make sure I pick a pack or two up. And
Sure.
I don't think I'm quite as big on the drop shot as what you are, but they definitely have come in handy a time or two. So yeah. Let's see. Do we want to go around once more with highlights, or should we move on to plans for 2021? Because, yeah.
I think that means highlights, Don.
I think that's going to be highlights. Like I said, I had so many this year, it's hard to put a finger on just one. I was lucky before our season was delayed. We do have tidal water around here, and I was lucky to get out. I believe that was on the 28th of March, just as COVID was really starting to tighten its grip on us, but before we really got locked down and everything started going sideways. I'll be honest, that was not my first sturgeon. My first sturgeon that day was a lot smaller. Unique in itself because it was tagged. I still haven't figured out whose tag it was yet, but it was a tagged fish. So if anyone knows anything about tagged sturgeon, please send me a message because I still have the tag number. But my first opportunity targeting sturgeon, and I was able to pull that one out of the Kennebecasis River back in March. Like I said, I've got a list, as long as my arm of first. So, that one there, I can't help but thank Paul Melanson. Paul got a chance to get me out before the open water, the regular open water season on some tidal water. And, because of COVID, that was the last time, that was the last time I got out file. So that was definitely a highlight for me to kick off the 2020 season. So who else hit some firsts, I guess would be, some firsts.
I got my first chain pickerel. First chain pickerel this year. Yeah. And it wasn't huge or anything, but it was an experience in itself. One of my failures of 2020 happened the day I went pickerel fishing. I went pickerel fishing a few hours away from home, and I came home tired about 11 o'clock in the night, and pulled back in my driveway and completely forgot that my boat was behind me. And jackknifed my trailer into my truck. So that was my pickerel fishing experience. So I'm not in a rush to go pickerel fishing again, but it was a good time.
Okay, well, that's a unique first.
Yeah, I mean, I had to mention a failure of 2020. I mean, because we've all had them, right? So that was my biggest failure of 2020 for sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. While we're on it, let's see who else had a blooper reel moment that they're willing to talk about. Nick Rose, congrats on your first white and yellow perch of the year, or this year. I'm just running something through my head. So if someone else has a blooper reel moment, I'm bouncing my own thoughts around because there was more than one, and I'm not sure which ones I want to admit to.
Geez, I don't have anything like Rob's for sure. I've actually, but I didn't do it this year, but I've done that before, Rob.
Yeah.
The turn for that was on the back. I didn't bang it into the car. But I messed up the trailer. I bent it all out of shape. It was bad. But so I feel your pain there, but I definitely didn't have anything crazy like that. This was the first year I didn't hook or land a salmon probably in like 5-6 seasons. So I guess that would be like my failure this year. But that's salmon fishing. Like I think I was just lucky to have hooked one and landed one every year for the last 6 years. So I don't know if I can really even consider that a failure. I dropped my Ray-Bans in the water. That's probably my biggest failure. Fell right off my face when I was salmon fishing and in some high water, and I wasn't getting them back.
Well,
one of my big failures.
that's not a good day either.
No, it wasn't a good day. No.
So
I have a bit of a failure there, Don.
go for it.
I just this past fall headed out striped bass fishing to a spot where I normally catch a lot of schoolies. And the fun with catching schoolie striped bass is light line, smaller baits, that kind of thing. And we have a blast. I've caught 100 schoolies there, never caught anything over about 18 inches. And I was out there with Tang one day and using a medium action bait caster. So it's not like I was using light line. I was using a medium action bait caster, 12-pound test, and using that grass big swim bait. And I hooked into a fish, and I had that fish on for probably 20 seconds, just long enough to say, I think I have a big fish here. Oh, I definitely have a big fish here. And that fish turned for the ocean, and I couldn't stop it. It was my first time in my life I've been schooled. And it is the most helpless thing that you could ever imagine. You just literally, that thing just started going, and I cranked the drag down as tight as I could possibly crank it, and it didn't matter. It literally just, like a friggin' truck, just gone towards the ocean until I had no line left. So, I mean, not really a failure. It was a cool experience, but like, I feel like a failure. I was not prepared for that fish.
No.
I can't imagine ever hooking into something like that there again. But it was unfortunate.
Yeah, learning experience. Let's look at them
That's
that way.
right.
These aren't failures. These are the learning experiences.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think and like I said, I'm not going to call these failures. Mine, was more causing my own bodily pain that, I learned some lessons this year. Martin, I see you asking which tournament Rob was fishing. He fished the NBSFA Naquik Perth Andover event. So, 17 pounds, 13th place. That's New Brunswick smallmouth monster fisheries. So, my failure or blooper reel moments all came from one trip when we were up to the Bathurst and Chaleur region. We started out in Miscou. My first time ever surf fishing, which I absolutely loved. This was kind of a three-part little blooper reel. That day on the beach in Miscou, I was using the shortest rod of the bunch. I think I only had an 8-foot when everyone else was running 9s and 10s. So I was actually wading out to cast compared to everybody else standing on the beach casting. That was great until I stepped on a jellyfish, which was not something I want to do again anytime soon. Let's make a long story short, because I want to get on to some more techniques before we get into our 2021 plans. That same weekend, or that same day, I succeeded in getting, as you guys can see, this ginger hair and fair complexion. I do get the occasional sunburn. Back of my legs got severely sunburned. We went kayak fishing the next day. Top of my legs got severely sunburnt. Then that night, we put on some hip waders, waded out into the Bay de Chaleur and Bathurst to try fly fishing for some stripers. I have some pictures. I'm going to save you folks at home the queasy stomachs. Let's just say that I came out. I thought I had a bug or something stuck to the back of my leg after I peeled the waders off. I had a blister in the sunburn about as big around as a toonie sticking out off my leg, probably 3/4 of an inch, and it took about a month to heal. So sunburns and hip waders, that was my lesson learned. So Nate saying, I thought Matt's failure would be the
my God, I forgot about that. Thank you, Nate. It didn't sink, it almost sunk. No, So I bought this boat, and it's got a small leak, and I can't fix it. I've tried, and so I got myself some rivets, and I didn't realize at the time that they were a little bit short. So I went out with a buddy there, and I could still see that I hadn't fixed the leak. It's really slow. Like usually, after about 2 hours, you just kind of sponge out the water. Not a big deal. About maybe 3 kilometers from the boat launch, we're coming into this little spot, and I I see I can feel some water by my feet. It's like, geez, it's really coming in. I turn around and I just see a spout of water about 4 inches just shooting up. One of the rivets came right out. It was too small. So now I'm like, okay, now this is a big deal. This is not like, something we can sponge out. So I basically reached back and put my thumb on the hole and got it into shore. And I mean, looking around for what to plug it with, was going through my first aid kit and just took some gauze and just kind of shoved it in the hole, and it was enough to stop it. And it actually worked pretty well. Like it basically plugged up the hole. I couldn't believe it. And I think I only had to sponge out the boat once after that. We were fishing for about maybe 3 or 4 hours after that. So, yeah, thanks, Nate, for reminding me and embarrassing me at the same time. I hate you.
Mike's chiming in again. He forgot the drain plug twice last year, so don't feel bad, Matt. Yours was a mechanical malfunction, Mike. Well, he just forgot his plug. So
I've done that, but not this year.
Yeah, exactly.
We've all done that, maybe.
We all make mistakes. So we're going to move on to get a couple techniques, couple things. I'll start out. I don't want to give away too much of what we did when we were in Long Lake. I know the picture of my highlight from that weekend has made the rounds. That absolutely incredible New Brunswick Long Lake Adventures. Thank you to Clay and Tanya Harrison for hosting us when we went up there. Long Lake Adventures, Lake Trout. I'm not going to give away everything, but I want to show. We've got 2 pictures that show what we used that weekend. It literally was a ball jig and a Berkeley flat-nosed minnow. What normally would be a smallmouth bait, this little tiny soft plastic that was way too small for the size of the ball jigs we were using. And that was, and you'll have to stay tuned for the Long Lake Adventures episode to see exactly what we were doing. But that ball jig and that Berkeley flat-nosed minnow were the ticket to that 14-pound Long Lake trout. I like I said, I want to tell you, but I don't want to give away what we did on the episode because it was a little bit different than what you see traditionally up at Long Lake. So stay tuned for that one because you're going to see how we took that yellow ball jig and that little tiny flat-nosed minnow and turned that into some monster lake trout without trolling. So that was one bait, and I'll talk about. We already talked about the Berkeley square bowl that I caught that big smallmouth on. The other interesting. I don't know how to word it. Setup that we used was down in Waikagama. We used a clear water-filled float. And those aren't exactly like we used, but they there we go.
That's
the adjust-a-bubble. There it is. The adjust-a-bubble. You fill that float with water, about halfway with water. Your line runs through it. You slide it up your line, and below that, Matt, and we talked about this earlier, you say a number 8 or number 10?
I think it's a number 8 or number 10 octopus hook, yeah.
Yeah. Matt, you're the one that showed us this setup, so I'm going to let you expand on this a little bit because I'm going to be honest, when you first told us about this setup quite a few months ago on the air, we really sat around scratching our heads. You really blew our minds. So let you expand on this and tell everybody what we did.
Yeah, so basically, like Donnie said, that's the adjust-a-bubble. You fill it halfway with water, and I usually run it about 3 feet to the bait. So the bait we're using is live shrimp. And in the Bredor Lakes, they're prolific. That's the main source of food for all the trout species in the lake. That and Atlantic silversides, but mainly the shrimp. So basically, you just take a net, you scoop some shrimp on the shoreline, in the kind of grassy, weedy areas. You take your number 8 octopus hook and you just kind of run it once just through the tail, and that'll just dangle under the float and kind of kick his legs and swim around basically in circles. And if there's a trout around, he's going to eat it. There's just no question he's going to eat it. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've actually seen a fish show, like maybe he's chasing bait or a fish boils, and you throw that float out there within, like, if you can get it out to him within about 8 to 10 seconds, I can't think of a time where a fish didn't take that shrimp. It's almost a guarantee. If you can get it within that fish where he showed, you're gonna get him. And we kind of did that a few times in Waikagama, but we'll wait for the show to air for you to see that. But yeah, it's the bee's knee. It's the golden ticket in the Bredor Lakes. If you want to catch fish, that's the way to do it. Some people might argue me and say power bait, or if you can get the silver side minnows, they're just as good too. But if you fish that setup and there's trout around, you're going to catch one. And it's a really interesting technique. I've never heard of it used anywhere else, which is kind of strange because those shrimp aren't just in the Bredor Lakes; they're in any saltwater system, and there's a lot of sea trout around Nova Scotia. So maybe once people see this setup, maybe they'll go and use it somewhere else. I would love to know if it would work somewhere else. I'm sure it would, but it's definitely. I know that people think I'm kind of crazy when I say live shrimp, but it works.
Let's kind of make sure everyone understands, though. You're talking about a number 8 or a number 10 hook, so you're talking a small hook,
small little octopus hook. Yeah,
these shrimp would be what? A big one would be an inch long, inch and a quarter.
I've seen them. Yeah, on average they're about an inch. 2 inches is a pretty big one. I've seen them a little bit bigger, but generally about an inch and a half long is about your average. And I mean, they'll eat little tiny ones. The problem is trying to get it on the hook and keep the thing alive. And, if they're too small, they can't really move around freely.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to go out there with a little, fine mesh net, and you just kind of skim the sand and skim the eelgrass, and you'll fill a bucket of them in no time.
Yeah. It was without a doubt, I would say, the most unique technique that I got an opportunity to try this season. So, yeah. And then, like I said, I tried a lot of new stuff, and that one was definitely one that left me scratching my head. So, Rob, you talked about your flukes. Was there any other techniques that you played with this year, whether successfully or unsuccessfully? Something that you really stood out in your mind?
Yeah, I discovered how powerful this guy right here. Can you see that?
The Gibbs minnow.
The Gibbs minnow. This is, to me, anyways, this is the most versatile lure. You can vertical jig it, you control it, you can cast it, and I've caught numerous different species using all these. Yeah, that laylock.
That's a nice one.
That was on a Gibbs minnow, a bit bigger than that one. That was a 2-ounce Gibbs minnow I was trolling. I believe we have a picture of a lake trout too. That was also trolling the Gibbs minnow. I've caught lake trout and landlocked vertical jigging the Gibbs minnow, brook trout, any salmonoid really this is my go-to. Like I'll cast this in a brook for a 6-inch trout and just nail it. Like they're a deadly lure, man, and that would be like my go-to technique would be the vertical jigging, because in summertime when it's 30 degrees out, you can go to a lake and throw that down, vertical jig it in 30 feet and start catching brookies like crazy. Like it's unreal. And I know, guys that go mackerel fishing are probably pretty familiar with it because it's essentially a mackerel jig. But it's the best lure out there, guys. I'm telling you right now. It's deadly rig. And that would be my technique, would be especially the vertical jigging for salmonoids. That Gibbs minnow is unreal.
Have you ever used it on ice, Rob?
Yeah, I actually I sent you guys some pictures the other day of a couple landlocks. That's what I was using right there.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So, well, I guess technique-wise, we're going to go to, I assume everybody else's screen looks the same. We're going to go to the top right corner, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to put you on the spot on a specific question. because you live in the Truro area, and you mentioned a local lake, which I'm pretty sure I know which lake that is.
Yep, it's Shorts Lake. Everyone knows that one.
Yep. And you talk about it being full of pickerel.
Yes, sir.
You got a go-to for the snot rockets.
I mean, to be honest, you can catch pickerel on a lot of stuff. You can pretty much. I'm not going to say you can do anything and catch pickerel, but if you are in a spot with pickerel, you can catch them a lot of different ways. But what I've started to do lately, I've consistently caught 17, 18-inch pickerel out of Shorts Lake, but to catch bigger ones, it's been kind of rare. So over the past year, I've started using larger baits. It seems common sense, but nobody really does it around here, I don't think. But I've started using musky-sized baits to catch pickerel in Shorts Lake and actually everywhere I go. So I'm using the smaller Mepps Muskie Killer bucktails. And to be honest, when COVID didn't allow me to go fishing, I went out to the shed and I made a couple of fishing lures. And I made essentially pickerel-sized muskie baits, crankbaits. So I did up a couple of 10, 11-inch long wooden crankbaits. I did it sort of as a joke to start with. My thought was to, go out, catch a fish, and then hang it on the wall, just as something cool because I get bored easy, right? But it turns out it worked really well. And that's sort of what led me to do it. So I've been trolling Rapala Super Shad Wraps. And like I said, the bucktails and these crankbaits that I've made. So I'm talking, 10, 11-inch crankbaits. I have some more actually in the basement here that are waiting to get painted. Big baits. I'm catching consistent 22-plus-inch pickerel on these baits, and it's effective. It's really effective. I'm not catching all of the 16 and 17-inch pickerel, but how many of those do you really want to catch in a day, right? So big baits, big fish. It's working for me.
Cool.
I think you have a new fan. I see Jason Wilcox chiming in with "Go Big" again. So you're speaking his language. So
yep.
Matt, you're a pickerel master as well. Did you have a go-to, or is your perch bait, or it doesn't have to be pickerel, I guess. Is there another go-to lure for you for this year? Your top lure of 2020?
No, my usual. No, I didn't really. This was probably one of the first years where I really didn't buy too many different lures. Like, years before, you'd always go and you'd see what was new at iCast, and you buy these things, or you go and you look online what's new and try all these things. I didn't try too many new ones. That was probably the one that I actually tried and used and caught some nice fish on. I kind of stuck to my go-tos this year. My go-tos for pickerel are always just swim baits and stuff. But I like that, Ryan. I've never really put an effort into bigger baits. I've always thought about it and I just haven't done it. I just stuck to what I've known. So that's really interesting. I really want to try that. One technique I've really started to do this year that I've had a lot of success on was just fishing deeper water in general, whether it be with spinning gear or with some intermediate and sinking lines on the fly rod. I found a lot of success this year just fishing deeper. I've always kind of stuck to shallower. If I'm fishing like, pickerel and stuff, the weedy areas, I didn't really fish deep for them until this year. Same with bass and white perch. I started kind of moving deeper, and trout. I started fishing deeper water for trout and had some success and some nice trout. Earlier I said one of my highlights was a Stuyak, and I keyed in on them, and that was using sinking lines on the fly rod to get the fly down to where they were. I've used like sinking leaders, but they're kind of awkward to cast, and I don't think it really presents the fly as nice as just like an intermediate sinking line. And I've had a lot of success just kind of fishing a little deeper, getting out of the comfort zone. It was just out of my comfort zone. I didn't like fishing deep. I liked being able to see structure and cast a structure. So I got a little out of my comfort zone, and it paid off. And I took a lot out of it. I learned a lot. and I can't wait to explore more next season. That's definitely something that I'm going to spend more time on.
Yeah, getting outside of your comfort zone is never a bad thing. It's something we all need to do. It's something I did a lot of this year with the help from all the guys we've worked with here at Fish East, and just friends and great anglers out there. Matt, you were talking about trout. I'm going to give one more little go-to. One more question about a go-to bait to see if he's got any advice, and then we're going to move on to some 2021 plans. Ryan, trout. You were talking about playing around.
If I'm being honest, trout are not my favorite. I catch trout. I fish for trout fairly often. They're not my favorite to go fish for. I've been up to Cape Breton and I enjoyed my trip up there and caught a lot of trout. But I just haven't got the hang of it. You see some of those guys who can go out with a fly rod and catch 15, 18-inch trout on a fly rod. Like, I envy those guys. They have figured something out that I haven't figured out. But my go-to for trout, and this goes for stock trout ponds. I used it on the Brador. I use it on the streams and the rivers here. A little Cleo. A little Cleo spoon. Now, I know a lot of people use a spinner, and for years I used a spinner with a little piece of worm on the end of it to catch trout. But I've switched over to that little Cleo spoon. Trolling. When I'm out, I've done a bit of lake trout fishing, and I get the little Cleo out there too. And I've caught some good brook trout while I'm trying to catch lake trout on those. But as far as a good all around bait that can be used rivers, streams, creeks, stocked fish, natural fish, all species of trout. I've caught browns. I've caught rainbows. I've caught plenty of brookies on them, but those 1/8 ounce little Cleos, a few different colors. It doesn't seem to matter that much. I just love them.
Do you tip that with a worm or anything, right?
Nope. No. If you tip it with a worm, you actually lose a bit of the action.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't put anything on them. And yep, just straight little Cleo spoon. I like that is my 100% go-to.
When I was younger, I used to use the little Cleos, but I would take the treble hook off and run like a 8 to 9 inch leader off the back with a worm or minnow, and we used to do quite well in the Brador Lakes on that too, and it didn't affect the action too much. I know what you're saying though. Some of those smaller, if you put something on the back, it just doesn't wobble. It almost comes in straight. Yeah. So that's kind of what we used to do, is run that leader off the back, and we had a lot of success like that.
To be honest, when I was up in the Brador, I was fishing the Middle River. I actually float my kayak down the river. I saw a flash, and I thought it was a lure on the bottom. And when I picked that up, it was a Williams wobbler with about an 8-inch leader and a shrimp fly on the back of it. Oh. Somebody had lost that in the river, and I tied that on, and I started catching fish as soon as I put it on.
Oh, it's the shrimp. Right back to the shrimp.
It is right back to the shrimp. Sure.
You guys and your shrimp. I'm not.
Hey.
I'm not sure I'm ever going to wrap my head around it. All I know is it worked and it was a lot of fun. Absolutely. So I guess that's all that matters. So let's see, 2021. It's hopefully a little more open and friendly to traveling and getting out and spending time with people. A little less restrictive. But let's start with you, Matt. What's your goal or your 2021? I don't want to call it a bucket list, but what's in store for Matt Zito in 2021?
Well, like you said, if we're allowed to, I got to come up to New Brunswick. I got to see what all the fuss is about. I have to fish the Miramichi so I can see it for myself to compare. From the way you guys talk about it, and it sounds very different than the Stewiacke, which I'm totally excited about, because as much as I love the Stewiacke, I hate fishing the mud. It's you can't. You're fishing blind. Really, you can't see your lure. You can't see any fish. You don't know if they took a swipe at you. So I would love to be able to fish big stripers in like clear water. I would love it. So that's I'm coming up for that. And definitely I want to get into a lake trout. I've always, I've known they were in Nova Scotia for a while. I know they were only in a few lakes. And never ventured forth to target one, but that's something I want to do. And
I think someone's taking a little shot at you there, Matt.
yeah, I saw the little shot there. I'm not picking up a bait caster, Nate. I'm not doing it. No, not doing it. Maybe, you know what? I do want to target muskie, and I know that it's important, for the speed of the lure and to get the fish in quick. So for the sake of the muskie, if I go ahead and target one and I'm not using a fly rod, I will use a bait caster. Only for that reason.
Well, let's make a deal. You said your goal is to get me on a big fish with a fly rod. I'll make it mine to get you on a decent, I'm not going to promise you a muskie because that's not my area, but I'll help you learn how to run a bait caster.
Oh, okay. All right. Don't put any of your good line on it because I'm going to mess that thing up. I'll tell you right now. I don't like. I see some guys who are like, really good bait casters, have had them for years, and they get like 2 dozen birds nests a day. I'm like, oh my god, like I would ruin that reel if I picked it up. You guys have been fishing this all your life, so no. I think that's. I would like to come up to New Brunswick and experience, muskie fishing, the Miramichi, of course, and lake trout, whether it's in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, and I think that's it. And I want to try to get. I've tried for 2 years now, and I can't get it done. I'm trying to figure it out. I want to get a striped bass on a topwater fly. I tried so hard this year. They're busting on bait everywhere and gas bro everywhere, and I'm telling you, they're jumping past my fly to get a gas bro, and I couldn't figure it out. And I think it just comes down to the action of they don't like the popping, I think. I've had success with topwater lures, but not a topwater fly. So I think I've got some ideas that I think might work, but that's my goal. That's for locally, in Nova Scotia. That's my goal. Aside from going to New Brunswick and experiencing all that crazy fishery you have up there.
I think you got there. You go. Miramichi's the place for popper stripers.
Perfect.
Once
so
again,
2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, thank you all for all the comments tonight. If without your feedback, that just makes this show so much more fun. Flip a coin, 50-50. Rob, 2021, what's in store?
Well, I'm hoping for a Striper Cup this year. With that being said, for the most part, that's the only time I plan on fishing stripers in 2021. My number one go-to for 2021 is I want to make it to Walton Lake and fish and get myself an Arctic char because it's an elusive fish, and I've been 2 years I've been trying to get this fish. I haven't gone to Walton Lake yet. I kind of didn't want to have to fork out some money to try to get one, but it seems like Walton Lake is the place to go if you want to catch an Arctic char, without it being, like a stocked farm, basically. So
yeah,
I want to do that. I want to concentrate more on smallmouth and lake trout, and I also want to get myself a whitefish, because I hear this is the new up and coming sport fish is the whitefish.
That's definitely a challenge.
Yes, yeah, but they are here in New Brunswick, so that's a goal for next year. And the last thing I want to do, and hopefully COVID opens up and everything, is I actually want to get out and fish with some of the Fish East guys, because I've only had the opportunity to fish with a couple, and probably want to go down to Nova Scotia and check out what Matt's got going on down there with the rainbows for sure.
Oh yeah,
and perhaps a goldfish with Ryan. That would be awesome.
Anytime you want.
And me and Jeff Rathburn have a little plan there to go catch some browns in the spring there. So hopefully that can all happen.
Yeah, everybody's joining me in this multi-species hunt, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
Isn't that what Fish East is all about? It's not about.
So.
It's not about how many of one fish. It's about one of how many different fish.
That's right.
So, well, Ryan, I guess you're up next. What's 2021? Okay, 38 species in 2020. Can we make it 40 in 2021?
No, I'm not doing that again. No. I did. I put a ton of effort into adding to the species list this year, and I had a great time doing it. But I think next year, my big focus and my focus over the last few years, and I haven't put enough time into it and effort, is definitely lake trout. We have one lake that is known to consistently mostly produce lake trout within Nova Scotia. I haven't been down there yet, and I need to try it. But I'm a glutton for punishment. I've been hitting Dollar Lake for years, and that is a place that is known to have lake trout. I have no idea on the quantity, the quality. I don't care. I have recently had it's been confirmed to me that there is actually lake trout there. So now it's just a goal of mine. I've tried for a few years. I can't give up on it. So I'd really like to catch a lake trout in Dollar Lake. If that doesn't work, I'm just going to have to go to New Brunswick and go hit up Long Lake, right? But I got to catch me a lake trout this year. I've never caught one in my life. So I need to add that to the species list. And that is my ultimate goal for this year, certainly lake trout. There's a few little trips. I really wanted to get up and do Waikagama through the ice this year. We'll have to see whether or not that's going to happen. I have a goal to try and get out with the fly rod a little more this year, to try and catch some trout. I think the big thing I mentioned earlier, that I've started making some fishing lures, sort of as a lark back when COVID was going on. But I'm actually setting myself up a little bit to start making my own crankbaits. Up and watching a guy on YouTube that makes a lot of stuff. So I want to make some swim baits, make some lures. The act of making them and painting them is just, it's a lot of fun for me. But they don't count until they catch a fish. So I want to legitimately make some decent lures and just enjoy myself and get out and catch some fish on stuff that I've made with my own hands.
Well, if you take a look on your screen right now, I think you could sell one right off the bat. Jason Wilcox.
Absolutely.
Jason's a great
not even
bait
joking.
maker himself.
I got some fishnet stockings delivered from Amazon in the mail today. That is part of my setup to be able to do some cool paint jobs. So definitely, Jason, when I get this stuff set up and get a few baits made, I'll send one over to you.
Well, at least we now know we now know what he told the delivery man as to why he was having fishnet stockings
Tang's
delivered.
not happy that I mentioned this fishnet stockings, I'm sure, but
but no, and guys, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I've got a couple goals of my own. I mean, I want to get back up to Long Lake because I need a landlock. I didn't get one this year when we were up there. We focused strictly on the Lakers. I want to get down to Nova Scotia, hit up the Stewiacke, get one of those muddy water stripers, and I need to get my first Bay of Fundy striper on this side of things as well. So I've got some goals for myself for 2021, but you folks are going to get to see a lot of that. One last thing I am looking forward to this year. I haven't had the opportunity to fish any tournaments in the last couple of years. Was on the organizing side, and I mean, I still have a charity event and that whatnot, but I want to get back on a boat, get back on a smallmouth tournament, which is how I really cut my teeth in the fishing industry. And some friends of ours, friends of mine anyways, Jason Gauguin, Ryan Hood, are taking over one of the smaller series here in New Brunswick, the new NB Bass Tour. They're taking over what used to be the Rapella series. They've got a great incentive out for rookie team of the year. Nice easy format, no big tying up long weekends, so I still get time with my family. And I'm really looking forward to getting back out for some competitive angling again as well. So it's shaping up, COVID permitting, to be a great year for fishing all around the Maritimes, all around the Atlantic region. It doesn't matter which province you're in. All 4 Atlantic provinces have such unique and special opportunities. There's another thing that I want to do is I want to get across the Confederation Bridge and check out what PEI has to offer. Yeah. So maybe we can plan a Fish East excursion, COVID permitting, and meet somewhere on the other side and hammer some PEI trout and some PEI stripers. So Rob, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure, as always, having you guys with us. And
thank you, Donnie.
We'll be talking to you again in the very near future, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, as always, my friend, whether it's on the screen or on the boat, it's always fun hanging out and, talking about the sport that we both love so much. So
Yeah, always a pleasure, Donnie. Always a pleasure, man.
let's get around. I know in 2 weeks' time, and I'm kind of hesitant to even say that we were going to do this topic, but I know in 2 weeks' time we were planning on doing an ice fishing show, but man, there ain't a lot of ice around.
No, there's not much here. Kinsack just started to kind of shell over now, but I wouldn't dare step on it. And then we're going to get some rain this weekend, so that'll most likely be gone. Yeah, it's crazy. Like we were already ice fishing this time last year, and I mean, I got all my ice fishing gear ready to go. Just waiting for the ice now. If it comes, I don't know. Geez, the ice might come, and then next thing you know, it'll be open season again. So
we'll make it do. But I mean, whether there's ice or not, we can still talk about it because there's still some safety tips, some gear tips that people need to know about. Because up north there's ice, there's people finding ice. So let's make sure everyone has fun and stays safe. Matt, thank you again, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone at home, like I said, without your comments, without your questions, this show isn't half the fun that it is. And
absolutely,
God knows we could sit around talking fishing all night. So for Matt Zito and myself, until next time, fish on and fish east.
Tight lines.